You know what's worse than watching a family business crumble? Being the one called in to fix it after everyone else has given up. 6 months, that's all it took for a thriving company to be on the brink of collapse. And the person who handed me this nightmare, the same man who proudly gave his daughter the keys to the kingdom at a family meeting just half a year earlier. I'm going to tell you a story that sounds like it came straight out of a corporate drama series, but I promise you, every word of this actually happened. This is about nepotism, ego, desperation, and what happens when family loyalty collides with business reality. By the end of this video, you'll understand why mixing family and business is like playing with fire, and more importantly, you'll learn the exact strategies I used to pull this company back from the edge. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let me take you through one of the most intense 6 months of my professional life. It started with a phone call I wasn't expecting. The voice on the other end was strained, tired, almost defeated. It was Marcus, a successful entrepreneur I'd consulted for years ago when he was building his manufacturing company from the ground up. Back then, he was full of energy, confidence, and vision. The man on the phone now sounded like a shadow of that person. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. He said he needed to see me immediately. There was an urgency in his tone that told me this wasn't a casual catch-up. When someone who built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing sounds desperate, you pay attention. We met at a cafe far from his office. He didn't want employees seeing him like this, he told me later. Marcus looked like he'd aged a decade since I last saw him. The confidence was gone, replaced with something between shame and panic. Then he told me what happened. 6 months earlier, at what was supposed to be a celebratory family meeting, Marcus made an announcement that shocked his leadership team but delighted his family. He was stepping back from day-to-day operations and handing control of the company to his daughter, Sarah. Now, let me be clear about something. This isn't a story about a daughter being incompetent or unqualified simply because she's family. That would be too simple, too predictable. Sarah had an MBA from a prestigious school. She'd worked in consulting for 3 years. On paper, she looked like she could handle it, but there's a massive difference between looking qualified and being ready to run an established company with 200 employees, complex supply chains, and razor-thin margins. Marcus made this decision from his heart, not his head. He loved his daughter. He wanted to secure her future. He wanted to step back and enjoy life while he was still healthy. All understandable reasons, all terrible reasons to hand over a company without proper preparation. The family meeting was apparently full of tears, hugs, and champagne. Sarah was excited. Marcus's wife was proud. His son, who worked in a different industry, seemed supportive. Everyone felt good about it, and that's exactly when the problems began. The first month was what I call the honeymoon disaster. Sarah came in with energy and ideas. She'd learned about disruption and innovation in business school, and she was determined to make her mark immediately. She didn't want to be seen as just the boss's daughter. She wanted to prove she deserved this role. That desire, that need to prove herself, became the catalyst for chaos. She started changing things, not small things, not gradual improvements. She overhauled processes that had worked for years. She brought in expensive consultants, friends from business school who spoke in buzzwords but didn't understand the manufacturing industry. She pushed for rapid expansion into markets the company had deliberately avoided because Marcus knew they weren't profitable. The veteran employees, people who'd been with Marcus for 10 or 15 years, tried to push back gently at first. They'd explain why certain processes existed, why certain decisions had been made. Sarah heard this as resistance, as old thinking, as people who didn't want to embrace change. She started replacing key people with outsiders who agreed with her vision. By month 3, the company culture had completely fractured. Half the leadership team had quit or been pushed out. The employees who remained were either too afraid to speak up or had mentally checked out. Productivity dropped. Quality issues started appearing in products that had been flawless for years. Clients who'd been loyal for decades started complaining. Marcus watched all of this happen. He'd promised himself he'd step back, let Sarah learn, give her space to lead. He didn't want to be that father who couldn't let go, who undermined his daughter's authority, so he stayed quiet even as he watched warning signs multiply. His wife encouraged him to trust Sarah, to give her time. After all, she had the education, the credentials, surely she'd figure it out. By month 5, the financial reports made it impossible to ignore reality. Revenue was down 30%. 3 major clients had left. The company was burning through cash reserves at an alarming rate. 2 competitors were circling, sensing weakness, trying to poach both clients and employees. That's when Marcus finally stepped in and tried to talk to Sarah. It didn't go well. She felt betrayed, undermined, humiliated. She accused him of never really trusting her, of setting her up to fail. The conversation ended with Sarah in tears and Marcus realizing he'd created a situation where his daughter running the company into the ground was destroying both his business and his relationship with her. He spent the next few weeks trying to fix things himself, stepping back into operations, but the damage was too deep. Employees didn't know who was really in charge. Sarah felt undermined but also relieved she wasn't carrying the burden alone. Clients were confused about the leadership situation. It was organizational chaos. That's when he called me. Sitting in that cafe, Marcus laid out the situation with painful honesty. He needed someone from the outside to come in and save the company without destroying his family. He needed someone who could be the bad guy, make the hard decisions, and give both him and Sarah a way to save face while the company got back on track. I'm not going to lie. My first instinct was to say no. Family business disasters are notoriously difficult to fix because you're not just dealing with business problems, you're dealing with emotions, relationships, egos, and years of family dynamics. But something about the desperation in Marcus's eyes and, frankly, the intellectual challenge of the situation made me say yes. I gave him my conditions. I needed complete authority for 6 months. I needed him to step back entirely, no interference. Sarah could stay if she agreed to essentially start over in a learning capacity, reporting to me. I would make decisions that might be unpopular, might hurt feelings, might require admitting that mistakes were made. If he couldn't agree to all of that, I was out. He agreed to everything. The first week was brutal. I came in and did a complete assessment. I talked to every remaining member of the leadership team. I reviewed financials in detail. I spoke with key clients. I even had anonymous conversations with employees at different levels. The picture that emerged was worse than Marcus had described. This wasn't just a company struggling with new leadership. This was a company in crisis, bleeding money and talent, with morale at rock bottom and a reputation in the industry that had gone from respected to questionable. I had to move fast. The first thing I did was have an honest conversation with Sarah. This was delicate. She was hurt, defensive, embarrassed. She knew things had gone wrong, but didn't fully understand how wrong or why. I didn't blame her or make her feel incompetent. Instead, I focused on reality. I showed her the numbers, the client feedback, the employee survey results, not to humiliate her, but to help her see what had happened from an objective outside perspective. To her credit, once she saw the full picture, she broke down, but she also listened. She admitted she'd been in over her head. She'd made decisions based on theory without understanding the practical realities. She'd pushed away the very people who could have helped her succeed because she'd been too proud to admit she needed help. We agreed she'd stay, but in a completely different role. She'd essentially become my chief of staff, learning the business from the ground up, rebuilding relationships with the team, understanding why things worked the way they did before trying to change them. Then came the hard part. I had to bring back stability and fast. I reached out to 2 of the senior leaders who'd left and convinced them to come back. That wasn't easy. They'd felt disrespected and pushed out, but they loved the company Marcus had built, and they believed in its potential. I promised them authority, respect, and a voice in decisions. I reversed about 70% of the changes Sarah had implemented, not because all her ideas were bad, but because the company was bleeding and needed to get back to basics first. We could innovate later. Right now, we needed to survive. I personally called the 3 major clients who'd left. I was honest with them. Leadership transition hadn't gone as planned. We'd made mistakes, but the company was under new management temporarily. The team that made them successful was back, and we wanted another chance to earn their business. 2 of them came back. The third was too far gone, already committed to a competitor. I held town halls with employees. I acknowledged the chaos of the past 6 months. I didn't throw Sarah under the bus, but I didn't pretend everything had been fine either. I laid out a clear plan for the next 90 days and promised transparency about what was happening. The first month under my leadership was about stopping the bleeding. The second month was about rebuilding trust and stability. By month 3, we started seeing green shoots. Revenue stabilized, employee morale surveys showed improvement, quality metrics returned to historical norms. But here's what made this situation unique. While I was fixing the business, I was also coaching Sarah. Not in business school theory, but in practical leadership. She shadowed me in meetings. She saw how I handled difficult conversations. She learned to listen to experienced people without feeling threatened. She started understanding that good leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions and empowering the right people. By month 4, something interesting happened. Sarah started contributing valuable ideas again, but this time grounded in understanding of how the business actually worked. She'd identify a problem, but instead of immediately imposing a solution, she'd gather input from the people doing the work. She became humble, curious, and genuinely effective. I started giving her more responsibility. Small projects at first, then bigger ones. She had wins and she had failures, but she learned from both. The team, seeing this transformation, started respecting her, not because she was the owner's daughter, but because she was genuinely growing into a leader. By month 6, the company was stable, not just back to where it had been, but actually improved in some ways. Revenue had recovered. We'd retained most employees, client relationships were solid, and Sarah had evolved from someone who'd nearly destroyed the company into someone who might actually be able to lead it someday with the right continued development and support. My final report to Marcus included a recommendation that surprised him. Don't put Sarah back in charge immediately, but don't remove her from leadership either. Create a structure where she continues to grow with strong, experienced leaders around her, with clear accountability, and with a long-term development plan. Give her another 2 years of learning before considering making her CEO again. Marcus accepted this. More importantly, so did Sarah. She'd learned the most valuable lesson any leader can learn: that titles don't make you a leader, that experience matters, that listening is more powerful than talking. That business isn't theory, it's people, processes, relationships, and execution. The story could have ended there, but there's an epilogue that matters. 2 years later, Sarah did step into the CEO role again, but this time she was ready. She had the respect of the team. She understood the business. She'd proven herself through results, not credentials, and the company thrived under her leadership in a way it never could have if she'd stayed in charge after that disastrous first 6 months. Marcus and I still talk regularly. He tells me that the 6 months of crisis were actually the best thing that could have happened. Not because it was fun or easy, but because it taught both him and Sarah lessons they never would have learned otherwise. So, what can you learn from this story? First, never hand over leadership of anything important just because of family relationships or emotional reasons. Love your kids, but be honest about whether they're actually ready for the responsibility you're giving them. Second, credentials on paper mean nothing compared to actual experience and readiness. An MBA doesn't teach you how to lead people through crisis or make tough decisions when everyone is watching. Third, ego is the enemy of growth. Sarah's transformation only happened when she let go of needing to prove herself and became willing to actually learn. Fourth, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is intervene, even when it's uncomfortable. Marcus's desire to let Sarah figure it out on her own nearly destroyed both the business and their relationship. Earlier intervention with proper support could have prevented most of the damage. And finally, failure isn't fatal if you're willing to learn from it. Sarah's first attempt at leadership was objectively a disaster, but her willingness to acknowledge that, learn from it, and grow made her eventual success possible. If you're in a family business, or thinking about bringing family into your business, or watching someone you care about struggle in a role they're not ready for, this story should be a wake-up call. Love and loyalty are beautiful things, but they're terrible foundations for business decisions. Success requires honesty, preparation, support, and sometimes the courage to say this isn't working and we need to fix it. Thanks for watching this story. If you found value in it, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-world business stories and lessons. Drop a comment below and tell me if you've ever seen or experienced something similar in a family business. What happened? How did it turn out? I read every comment and I love hearing your stories too. Remember, business is personal, but decisions need to be professional. Get that balance right, and you can build something that lasts generations. Get it wrong, and you can lose everything in 6 months. I'll see you in the next video.